back once again, and hey, so I was on the tweets on the X, and somebody came up that happens to be a revolutionary, a visionary, an actor, a poet, a decipher. He's your gluteus to the Maximus, Seth freaking Rollins. Talked about the Luka Doncic trade. Now, if you don't know what that is, I don't know where you've been at because it's been like one of the biggest stories in all of sports. But he basically got traded to AD in a shocker event of things. But he basically was saying that they asked him about the trade, and they asked him about, I guess, like they asked about it in the version of like wrestling, WWE, and stuff like that. And he was basically like, I don't think there's any comparison. There's no way to even do that trade in this sense of like WWE AEW kind of thing. And I was like, first, I sort of was like, I was like, I had my own tweet after this, and I was kind of like, well, this would be WWE sending off a certain group of people over here to AEW or whatever, and I sort of did the analysis of that. And I was like, first of all, I want to say I took out Punk, I took out Rose, because I would also take out like Moxley and stuff like that, because I was like, I don't want to do people that have been in that company either. So it's like there's strictly people who basically been on one side. They haven't played on both fields, because I was like, if that was the case, of course, it'd be a little more lopsided. But to me, I was like, okay, cool. I'm thinking about this from this one angle where it was like, okay, WWE star that going to AEW, because you basically need somebody on the level of the star power of Luka. And it's like, who would that be? It would be, that would pretty much be like Roman Reigns. I was like, that'd be a Cena. I was like, only reason I say Cena because he's back wrestling now or whatever. I was like Seth Rollins himself, and I was like, I even want to throw in a Jey Uso now. The only reason I was like, outside of those three, where I was like, I think they are people that carry the company on their back, so you can say they're the franchise. They could be the franchise player. Yeah, they all outrank each other in all aspects, but individually, they are WWE sort of franchise players. The only reason I throw Jey Uso in that is really because he's coming off of the biggest thing yet. He's super over. He won the Rumble, all this other stuff. So his level is peak high, even though he might not be like the first couple selected wrestler. But if you looked at him versus like Gunther's a better wrestler. But if you looked at someone that would basically franchise level, it's also like Jey Uso. Anyway, his momentum's all there. And you got to think about Luka is coming off of going to the finals. While he didn't win it, I was like, he basically took his team all the way there, which means that you got a player at the very top of his sort of value right now, which even though it can also be better. Just like Jay, if he wins the championship, it could also be better. But I was like, any one of those kind of people going to AEW. But then I was like, who would you really trade for AEW? And I was like, you can't have its top people, because I was like, AD Walt is a star. I was like, he's not at the top level of like, you want to say like top 5 in the league or whatever like that. He probably is like number like 10 or 11 or whatever, depending on how you want to do some of these matchups. He's a really good player. And even then, I was like, I think that probably still works. Anyway, so I was like, okay, who from AEW would fit in that mold? So I'm like, I actually don't know. I was like, to me, I was like, would that be necessarily a Darby Allin? But I'm like, but if he goes to WWE, how well of a player would he be over there? And I was like, okay. I think MJF fits in this role, even though I was like, I know he hasn't been at the same level he was, say, when he was at a championship peak. But I think he is still a recognizable player that if he got sent to WWE, it'd be sort of able, like, you can build around him at the same time. Just like how sort of AEW still sort of builds around him in that. I will give Swerve, and I was like, I don't want to hear the people that's like, oh my god, Swerve was technically in WWE. No, he was in NXT. He never made the main roster. There's a difference. And I was like, I think Swerve would fit in that, where he's almost at the level of star player, franchise player of AEW, which I do think he is at. But at sometimes I'm like, yeah, but sometimes they haven't really had him all the way there. But I was like, to me, I was like, that could be somebody else that they could trade. Where it's like also another guy that you can build around. Is he at the level of those guys? No, but he can still be built around. Cause you also gotta do this by basically the people that's been in like a AEW or W, vice versa, WWE lifer of each spots too. So that's why I took out some of the people that's been in both of these companies. And to be honest, I was like, hmm, man, I was like, I started to also be like, oh, I could see the problem with people with AEW. The fact that I'm like, how many people do they have at in a spot where I'm like, oh, they weren't a like WWE grown and came over here kind of thing. I know that's a mixed bag sometimes, but then I started thinking of another way of it, where it's like Luka, while a star player, like how I picked some of the dudes going to AEW, is also going to the top franchise of like the Lakers. That's sort of the top franchise in all the NBA. And I was like, oh well, that's different. Cause now that would be that was like, I don't care what you say, it's still going to be WWE. They're the top over AEW, so they're the prime franchise here compared to, I was like, AEW, which would be the Maverick. So would you have it be that way, where it would be like the star player from AEW going to WWE, which that would probably, to me, be more of a Kenny Omega, Will Ospreay, and Adam Hangman Page being like the top stars over it. I was like Kakusha Okada, or whatever. Oh, I was like, also to go back, because I was like, we're doing this as well. I was like, before I get into them, the ones with Swerve and MJ, I was like Tanahashi. I was like that could also work as well too. I was like, just a couple of those. That's just like right there. I think I was like, but anyway, I was like Okada, Osprey, Omega, Hangman Page, and I was like, who would that be for the WWE? Where it's like they're really good. Where I was like, to me, I was like, it might be a Kevin Owens, it might be a Drew McIntyre. I get what you're saying, like they could be star players, but they're not just there at that spot of star players. In that sense, I was like, oh, I guess I could have said Randy Orton earlier as well too. I forgot he'd been injured. But no, I was like, to me, I was like, those are the ones where like you can also build around them. Are they on the same mega level as Roman on them? No. But I was like, but they're in that next tier. And I was like, if they went to AEW, I was like, they could be monsters over there as well too. I was like that. I was like, and I was kind of like, I was like, can't be no. I was like, LA Knights wouldn't work. I was like, and then I was like, that's where you kind of sort of do see the WWE in a way of their, especially their men's roster, of basically having that next level of like those mid carders sort of being at a problem where it's like, oh, you are really top heavy, and then after that, sort of drop. To me, I was like AEW. I was like, I think they got a lot of people in the middle. I was like Jay White would also fit in that little in between spot as well too, where I think they got a lot of depth in their middle, but I don't think they're high end. Whereas like WWE, I think they're high end and don't have a lot of depth. And I was like, they got a lot of depth, but they don't have like I was like, they got some okay pieces in the mid part. Yeah. And to be honest, so basically, I was like sort of doing some of these trades. I think Seth was right. I don't really don't think you can really have it work between the company, just because I was like, if we're talking about the level of Luka, that will probably still be WWE wrestlers. We talking about the 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 top of franchises, which would be the Lakers, that would also be WWE. And I was like, to me, I was like, that's where it sort of makes it hard about the analogy, is because you don't have somebody. I was like, well, yes, I think WWE would be glad to get any of those people I named. If you try to do the trade, I was like, I was like, I think Osprey and I think Omega would be the ones that they would definitely trade for, and they would try to figure out who they could for, and then after that, they might be like, we okay. Like now, you're doing a lot more negotiating. You know, they're not a full on, they're not a full on set of like Roman for Kenny. That's not gonna happen. You know, I was like Seth for Osprey, but I was like, you know, like we might negotiate or whatever, but I don't think WWE negotiate. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, just I was like, just a little brain teaser, mind puzzle, whatever. I was like, what do y'all think? And who would y'all trade, or who do y'all see in these level of these spots of trading? Whatever. Like I said. Anyway, let me know. Till then, more content later.